is the Immigrant Boss show today. Amazing show. Today I have Nelson J. Zambrano, the investor, the public figure, like owner of the Investing in America podcast. And I have here Julietta Wenzel, owner and the star of Voice of Goddess podcast, an amazing podcast of life balance, energy and everything good of life. And it's good, guys, to have you here with the Immigrant Boss show. Nelson, welcome, buddy, to the USA.
Augusto, I am very happy to be here. Very happy to be here. And you have, just like Juliette was saying, a very impressive podcast studio setup. And not just the equipment, but I can tell the energy, the vibe of the place, and the attention to detail is incredible. It is truly incredible.
Thank you, man. If you're watching us, if you are Julietta's friends right now, go to YouTube, search The Immigrant Boss Show, and you're going to be seeing the quality of cameras. It's going to be great to follow us there. But, the show we created for you that is an immigrant, or for you that is doing, you're moving away for your country, to share a little bit the struggles, to share a little bit some ideas. I will share my personal life here with the guys, and we are going to try to create this higher level energy and knowledge base so we can everyone search and learn with each other, and also, have a good time. This is a show, so it's be entertaining for you. Okay, so follow us. Nelson, tell me a little bit more about being Puerto Rico.
Okay, so just a couple of things just to clarify, okay?
Yeah.
So I am not Puerto Rican, all right? However, I have relocated to Puerto Rico. Why did I do that? Because Puerto Rico, first of all, we were looking at acquiring a business, did not go forward with that business, but at the same time, during that due diligence process, I saw that Puerto Rico had a lot of really good opportunities, not just in real estate, but the environment, the infrastructure is set up for business. It's got very favorable tax laws in Puerto Rico. A big part of your profits, your capital gains, are actually practically tax-free. 95%
cool.
of all of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone.
When did you move to Puerto Rico?
4 months ago.
Oh, only 4 months ago. So let's come back with a little bit of your background, because people want to know, who is this guy, Nelson J. Zambrano? This beautiful guy that's here with us. So tell me a little bit about your background. You go to Puerto Rico, but you see this opportunity in Puerto Rico that you're going to discuss a little bit later. Mm-hmm. What is your background here in the United States?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. It's so Immigrant Boss, right? So I look at that Immigrant Boss. So by going to Puerto Rico, I'm definitely an immigrant, right? Even though Puerto Rico is a part of the U.S., and it is the U.S., it's a very different dynamic, but I'll take a further step back. My parents are immigrants, okay? My family immigrated from Colombia. The first part of my family came to the United States in the 1950s. So before there was Spanish people, too many Spanish people here, Portuguese, Brazilians, they had no clue. And when my parents arrived, they arrived in New York. My dad was in the Colombian Merchant Marine, and he traveled around the world, and he wanted to find a place to go. And the United States was the place he wanted to go. Married my mom, brought her up from Colombia, and it was a big culture shock. For my dad, less. For my mom, a lot. She had never seen snow before, new language, new culture, everything was new. She would say Colombia, and people would think Columbia, South Carolina, or Washington, D.C. They'd never heard of the country of Colombia. A lot of folks never even seen a black person talk Spanish.
That's interesting, yeah. Because sometimes we think that Latin people in general, they're white, right? So that's some assumptions that some American guys, they think. And it's not necessarily like
and if
this.
you talk to a bunch
of mixture.
And if you talk to a bunch of Irish guys or Protestants, in their minds, from Mexico to Latin America to Argentina, nobody's white. So there's a lot of...
they say brown, right? Not necessarily white or black. I don't know. It's not yellow. Am I yellow? I don't know. Julietta, am I yellow or brown? What do you say that?
I see you as purple. So.
Okay. Guys, don't you let you know, we have here Julietta. She has a lot of experience living abroad, living in Venezuela. So that's why I brought them together. They know each other. So I would like to bring a little bit the military strong energy and the feminine energy of the balance, the energy from Julietta. So you also live a little bit this experience, right? Being in another country.
Yeah, I was a foreign exchange student. Back in 1986, I lived in Venezuela for a year, which Venezuela is not a place that you want to go to today. It's a scary place right now. But and it makes me very sad because it is such a beautiful country. You know, I lived there with a Venezuelan family. I went to a Venezuelan high school, you know, spoke Spanish for an entire year, and actually fell in love and married a Venezuelan who I was married to for 25 years. So, yeah, I've experienced it on multiple levels, you know, being the foreigner living in another country and having to figure out how everything operates in that country, and then being the wife of someone who came to the U.S. and he didn't speak a lick of English when he moved here, and you know, to observe the difficulties that he went through. So anybody that comes here and decides to open their own business, like, I have kudos, mad respect for that, because there's a lot of challenges there that people wouldn't necessarily think of. It's challenging to start your own, you know, as a business owner myself, it's challenging to start your own business. But to do that coming from another country, you have all these cultural and language and just extra levels of difficulty to put on top of the difficulty of starting a business. So,
and that's very interesting. Coming back to your parents, right? So, come back to the Colombia people. What they did here after, you know, they moving to the United States, right? Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit? You were born back then, or you were born here?
I was born in the U.S.
You were born in the U.S. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit what they passed through? What was their challenges back then?
Challenges. Everything was a challenge for my parents. Okay. As an immigrant, you're in survival mode every day. Every day is a challenge.
Man, I relate too much for this. I'm gonna share this out, but I relate a lot of this.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you know, you're already ahead of them, because my parents to this day would probably wish they had your level of English right now. So everything was a challenge. You know, you get weather, food, how to do this, how to do that. They just didn't know. I mean, different language, a lot of different groups that they weren't used to dealing with. Specifically, more from my mom. Her college background here wasn't certified, validated. So she went to being someone who was middle class, upper middle class, to, wow, you know, my credentials don't work.
What was her profession in Colombia?
She was a teacher.
Teacher.
She was a teacher.
And she could not be the same level here. Like the credential didn't work by that time, right?
No, it didn't. And then she was able to get a job as like a teacher's aide. But actually, before that, she worked in a factory sewing clothes. You know, used to do piecework in Brooklyn, and you would sew clothes. You know, like an assembly line sewing clothes. So she became kind of good at that. And my dad became a longshoreman because he'd been in the Colombian Merchant Marine.
Okay.
So that got him into with the longshoremen's.
What is sorry about my...
Yeah, so...
What's a longshoreman?
Okay, so what a longshoreman is, you see the guys working on the docks loading and offloading the ships?
Okay.
Those are longshoremen. There's this really specialized skill to be able to load a ship the right way, to offload the ships, you know, as well.
And they kept in those professions to raise you and to, like, educated you and to maintain the family, right?
Yeah. Like I said, it was... they were in survival mode. So a lot of things about the U.S., and I was the firstborn. So a lot of things to them, it didn't make sense. We're not going to do that. For my brother and sister, then they understood the importance of certain things. So for example, being in sports, my parents didn't put too much of an emphasis on it because they just, quite frankly, didn't know. They didn't know what that meant in the U.S.
Yes.
For my brother and sister, they were 100% in. So I was like the experiment kid.
Yeah. The guinea pig, like you are here today in the podcast, right?
It's like when you're the first, try it out on Nelson. Let's see what happens.
Yes, guys, I don't know. This is the new format of the podcast. And I told Nelson, I even don't know what's going to be the script today, man. But you have a lot of things to share, which is pretty good. And of course, Julietta as well. A lot of things to share. What was the most important challenge that you think that your father had back then in their survival mode? And do you relate of some of those challenges today, trying to invest or be an entrepreneur in Puerto Rico? Because it changes as well. And probably you have your own challenges doing, like, what challenge is the most impressive more important challenges your parents had by that time?
Well, that's a really good question. That is a really good question. Probably one of the biggest challenges. I mean, it's a stage, right? There's stages of challenges. So probably the first one would be right, employment, being able to make a living, being relevant, right? You want to be relevant as a man. You want to be able to take care of your family, be a good example, be a good role model. So that's very important. Okay, to become, you could say, irreplaceable.
Okay.
So that, I would say, was a challenge. And then for my dad and my brother too. And I say brother because we see things that our dad wanted to do, something that he did, something, so we want to kind of continue certain things. And that's the creation of a legacy. So one of the things that my dad did, a very small amount, and I know that's like a thing in our family, he wanted to invest more into real estate. Even here in South Florida, when we came down here to visit, that was something that he wanted to do more. Didn't have the backing, didn't have it. Because as an immigrant, you have a chip on your shoulder. You wonder, one, am I good enough? One, do I have the resources? Am I capable? There's a lot of doubt. You're always going to have doubt. But as an immigrant, you kind of have a little bit more doubt because there's no necessarily a group of someone to say, I got you.
Yeah. Some expression, that's something that I mentioned here, and being an immigrant, and being an immigrant trying to open a business, but it will, of course, be the same example, the same expression for someone that's trying to have a work and everything. I tell people being an immigrant in the United States is like a marathon. You are running a marathon, like a long-standing marathon. It's a long journey, but you have a bag full of rocks, full of heavy weights that you can be carrying, and in this marathon, nobody has this bag, of course, the other immigrants, but people don't have. And it's like the immigration process, the documentation, the language barriers, everything, not knowing the culture, For example, your parents didn't know that sports were so important to help the kids. So trying to put themselves, and sometimes being distant from their own families. My wife don't have any support for their families to help the children, right? Sometimes I would like to do something. So in general, we bring our children all the time because we don't have anybody to put and live there, unless you pay a big amount of money with babysitters and stuff. So do you think it's something that made them stronger and brought into the legacy, right, into you right now, a little bit of a differential to be stronger in your own life, having these challenges?
Well, yeah, because a couple of things. And I look at it not just stronger, but I have more solutions to solve a problem.
Cool.
I have more solutions. A big thing is faith, right?
Okay.
You got to believe, like, why am I here? Why did I come to this country? I know that. And it's little things. So take, for example, my dad has a lot of faith in the United States and how things are done here. My dad is huge, huge, huge supporter of the United States. When my mom got here, she was like, she saw snow. She saw that stuff didn't go away. It stayed there. It was so cold. And my mom was ready to leave. She said, I can't deal with it. So little things like make you stronger that people who take for granted. I remember when my parents, she talks about this, when they got a tax refund. And my mom said, what's this? And my dad said, well, you paid money into a system. We overpaid. You get the money back. And that blew my mom away. She says, I'm going to stay. She says, why? Why are you going to stay? Because now I understand how the system works.
Yes.
The system, for the people who are born here and grew up here and have nothing to judge it against, this system works.
Yes.
You can say, oh, it doesn't work because you've never been anywhere else.
Yes.
When you've been other places, you have something to compare it to.
Yes.
And my mom said, I'll stay. This is the best place. They're giving me my money back. They're not saying we're going to hold it as a credit for next year in some BS story. Mom said, I'll stay. I don't know how long I'm going to deal with the winters, but I'll stay.
Yeah. And that's very interesting because, I don't know, I'm an immigrant. And I see a lot of American people bitching out of the American institutions or, the reality that you have here. So, oh my gosh, it's so unfair, or this, and it's a horrible country, and that we see, like, as a Brazilian perspective, or as a Latin American perspective, say, man, you don't know what you have here, the gold mine, or the value that you have in this country because of the system, the founders created.
Yeah,
now you have.
Well, the
And
thing is,
I even like listening to you say that right now. I think, after going through this pandemic and all of the issues with that, I see in general like a lot of people really down, and we have the recession now, and people are down about that. But if you could see the rest of the world and what everybody else deals with, you have no idea how blessed you are to be in this country and how efficient and effective things are compared to the rest of the world. And yes, there might be some places that people might think are better to live than here. But when you look at the globe in general, things are so easy and efficient and organized here. It's crazy.
and that's a good perspective, and there's a perspective of someone that lived in other countries, and it's always like hanging out with other people, because I know that you are so broad with the friendships that you have and everything, so you understand a little bit what is the pain of other countries. But let's come back to your background. So you have this, your parents came to the United States, right? And you were raised, and then you get into your professional life that led you right now to here. But tell me a little bit more in what happened in your professional life. I know that you have a little problem with the like doing skydiving or something like this in your profession. But tell me a little bit more.
well, you know what? But before we get to that, there's something else
Yes.
that's very important. My parents, they did a couple of things. Right. Parents, there's always room for improvement. One of the things that they did when I was a little kid, even though I was born here, they sent me to Colombia to go to school, grade school. But they sent me to a U.S. school for expat kids, expatriate kids, which are generally U.S. kids, foreign kids. You go to a special school. And at that time, it was called Colegio Jefferson School in Cali, Colombia. And it was like going to school in the U.S., a private school. All the classes were in English. I mean, now this wouldn't fly. But at the time, even though it was in the country of Colombia, there was only one flag that flew, the U.S. flag. We only celebrated U.S. holidays. You could only speak English in school. Excuse me. All the teachers were American. And the only time I spoke Spanish was when I would go home to my grandma and my uncles.
Yeah, guys, this is the why of this show, and I get goosebumps right now, because the idea of this show is share with you different perspectives and ideas, and what you just shared to me right now. Say, man, I have children, and that's a pretty cool idea, to send them at least for 1 year to live a little bit their country, right? So it's amazing, man. And of course, if you live in the United States, if you're making your salary in dollar in general, it's not going to be so difficult for you to send someone in your Latin America country, right?
Yeah,
or
the exchange rate is in your favor.
Yeah, so that's amazing. Thank you very much for this tip. It's amazing. So go ahead.
Yeah. So what that did, and I cannot thank my parents enough for that, and something else that they did, that gave me almost like a window into another world that I didn't have access to.
Yes.
Because now I'm this kid in this expat school, the elite, learning, getting exposure, which is the key thing, exposure to another life. And at the same time, when I go home to my grandparents, I'm learning about Colombia and Latin America.
Yes.
And everything that was taking
In the
place.
language, I'm pretty sure that if you didn't, because there is a lot of Brazilian kids, even mine, they speak a funny language. Their parents' language is not as strong, so they speak a very like funny Portuguese. And I know that a lot of Hispanic guys are going to speak a funny Spanish sometimes.
Right. And what that did is that gave me almost like a superpower. And then when I came back to the U.S., so they brought me back, my dad said, everyone has to learn a foreign language in the house. And democracy was not practiced at home, okay? There wasn't this like, well, I got this opinion. I'm going to give you the opinion you got to have. And that's all there was to it. And I was okay with that, because later on, that helped give me different perspectives to solve different problems. I can actually ask myself a problem in this language and I get one solution. I'll ask myself the same problem or question in another language, and I'll get another solution. So that was a huge thing for me.
That's cool. Very good. Let's come back after this. How do you use it in your professional life? All this superpower that you have, like you were in the military, right?
Right. So again, the United States, a lot of folks, again, cannot appreciate the opportunities that we have.
Yeah.
Before I went to the military, I went to college. I really wanted to go straight into the Army. My parents talked me out of it, and I wanted to do that. I saw those James Bond movies growing up, and I said, sign me up for whatever that is, sign me up for the fast cars, the beautiful women,
Yes.
and all the dangerous stuff. Just sign me up for that, And they said, no, you got to go to college. So we negotiated, and I did ROTC, which is a course that you take. It's like getting another degree, but in the military. So when you graduate, you get your degree, and you're an officer, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I think even Coast Guard has it. So I did that.
So you did your college, I'm sorry for my dumbness because I'm new. So you did your college inside the military structure?
No, the reverse.
Okay.
I did college, and within college, I got a scholarship. I got a full scholarship that I could go to any school in the United States, no matter how expensive it was.
Okay.
I had to take military courses. I could take whatever major I wanted, take military courses, and upon graduation, I would go either on active duty or I would be in the reserves.
Okay.
So again, that's an opportunity that most places do not have, that you can get the military to pay for your education. And not just that, but the amount of training and experience and leadership and management that you get.
Give me the mechanics of this, and I would like to explore this a little bit more. So I'm a parent, right? My kids. What type of college I have to send them to get exposed to those type of trainings and sponsorships? How it works in general?
Okay, so the way you become an officer in the U.S. military, there's a couple of different commissioning sources. You get what's called a commission.
Okay.
You can go to the service academies like West Point, the Annapolis Air Force Academy.
And then after college or whatever?
No. There's a different ways to become an officer.
Okay.
So that's one way.
Okay.
The other way is you could go, you've got some college officer candidate school. I wasn't going to go that. I didn't go that route. And then you can say, I'm just going to go to University of Miami.
Okay.
Or I'm going to go to Harvard or Columbia.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. As long as that school or an affiliated school has an ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps program.
That's great.
Okay. You will take classes on leadership, management, fitness to become a military officer.
Okay.
And they will, if you have a scholarship, or pay you a stipend or pay the entire college. So it can be Harvard. It can be Columbia University.
Okay.
It can be, one of the big schools in California, UCLA.
Okay.
So the thing is because they want the officers to be well-rounded, well-educated. Okay. And at the same time, you're taking military courses. So it's like you're a student and an additional major or field of study is military science, military studies.
Okay, guys. So, ROTC. If you have kids, search it. Probably is a very, very interesting, powerful way to educate your children, right?
Yeah. So and quite frankly, and I joke about this with my classmates, we talk about how we learned more in ROTC than we did in the actual college and university.
Okay.
Because everything we learned, we had to put into practice. So if somebody said, let's say someone gets a degree in management, but what are they managing in school?
Yes.
Right? It's just, learning. You're learning, but you never practice it. But here, you take a course in leadership and management, and then you say, okay, here you got 40 cadets. You got to plan out this mission and execute the mission. And the book is one thing. Real life is another. You got 40 human beings, and, one's lazy, two do a really good job, 3 are out to lunch, and you got to actually execute on this mission. And then, 8 hours later, someone says, okay, you're dead, make believe. Now someone else is in charge. So the guy who was out to lunch, not paying attention, now he's like, oh, maybe I should have been paying attention. So everybody learns a lesson. So you actually get to apply this all at the same time. So when you go to your regular management class, you've got actual experience you can talk about. So generally you do better than your classmates.
That's amazing. Julietta, do you have any friends that have this type of experience, trying to educate their family members here, their children, or and try to integrate themselves here in the United States?
That's a good question. No one that I can think of. When you were speaking, I was thinking my dad was in the Navy.
Okay.
I was born at Bethesda Naval Hospital, so I'm a Navy baby. But when I was going to start college, he was trying to convince me to go into the ROTC program, and me being all peaceful.
So you know each other since then?
No.
Oh, your father.
My father,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
And so he was trying to convince me to use the ROTC program to pay for college. But I'm all peace, love, and happiness. I'm like, I'm not having anything to do with the military.
But,
But it's a great program for people who, want their children to have college education, but might not have the financial resources to pay for them to go to college. It's a great option.
Yeah, and just, again, for me, a lot of things were eye-opening, right? So what Julietta just said right there, and some people call it ROTC for short, ROTC, ROTC. About a quarter of my classmates, it wasn't a financial need. It wasn't like we can't afford to pay for the school. Their parents were really far thinkers. Their parents were saying, you need extra. So it wasn't about someone's got to write a check. The financial part, and we joke about this, that people say, I got them to pay for college. What I got out of it was so much more than what they got out of me. Okay, it was so much more than them, writing the check, okay? That's like the financial incentive. Why? First of all, the training that I got, the experiences, my network that I have. I mean, I can actually pick up the phone and meet people that normally would be almost impossible to have access to. And part of that was because of ROTC, where it started and where it's taking me. Okay,
that's very interesting. And then I don't know, it's very interesting how your parents could catch up and start thinking about the options for their children, right? What do you feel as an immigrant in Venezuela, right? So you have a experience a little bit different, but in terms of integration, how to put yourself, you were young, what age
18.
you had? 18, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how it was, because sometimes it's not super easy, right, to get to a different country.
Well, and what I will say is I know that I'm different than the average American. And, I went over there with a program called AFS. It stands for American Field Service. And it was actually started by ambulance drivers from the First and Second World War. And the reason they started the program was after witnessing, all the destruction and, what came of the war, they wanted to find a solution so that there would never be another world war. And their thought process was, if we in the world all got to know each other and become friends with each other, we wouldn't want to kill each other. And so the program that I went there, I think there were 30 other students from the US, and then there were students from all over the world. And so not only did I have the experience of getting to know Venezuelans living there, I also got to know Australians and Japanese and Europeans and Canadians and Jamaicans. And, there were people from everywhere there. And so for me, being able to experience all these different cultures at once, it's priceless. You talking about your experience with what you got out of ROTC. I feel like what I got out of my year abroad was just the greatest life-changing thing I could have done. But I also chose to be open to just learning everything while I was there. I know other students that went there, they were just overwhelmed, and they were just in survival mode over there and just make it through the year. And for me, it was just soak up every experience and every bit of learning that I can get from here. And the interesting thing to me was when other people there would meet me and they would ask me where I was from, none of them would believe that I was from the U.S. because my Spanish was too good to be an American, and my openness to everybody was different than what they experienced of other Americans.
You got this like a Spanish there, or you have learned before?
I learned, I took Spanish in junior high and high school.
Okay.
So as much as you can get from a, junior high and high school education, I had a significant amount of vocabulary, but I also made the commitment to myself when I was there. I'm here to learn Spanish. And so when people would want to speak English with me, I wouldn't let them speak English with me. I'm here to speak Spanish.
You should start speaking Portuguese with me now, right?
No falo portugués.
That was slick. She just did it right there. That was pretty good.
For sure, yes. You have a lot to add one language to your
I've been to
portfolio.
Brazil many times to, as a physical therapist, I've gone to teach fellow physical therapists. I have some very dear Brazilian physical therapist friends. And when I go there, I can understand when they speak to me in Portuguese. I don't really speak Portuguese, so I'll speak to them in English or I'll speak to them in Spanish. We can find a way to communicate. But I also know that communication isn't just language. We communicate with our eyes, we communicate with our hearts. And if you're just open to receive the message that someone's trying to send you. I mean, I've communicated with people who speak Chinese. I don't know any Chinese at all. But we would find a way to communicate.
I think I don't know if Nelson agrees with me, but I think one of the most important things if you're immigrating is to get out of the comfort zone. I will come back to this because right now, sponsorship. A little time for the sponsor. We got sponsored by The Captain Painter. TheCaptainPainter.com. This is your painting company here in Southeast Florida. And of course, if you are an immigrant and if you are looking to get into business, in construction business, of course, we are open. You can call us, discuss with us. We're going to share all the tips and tricks to have a construction company, a painting company here in the United States. What do you think about the Captain Painter, Julietta?
I love the Captain Painter. They painted my house purple, which makes me so happy, and it looks so beautiful.
That's great, guys. TheCaptainPainter.com. Very soon we're going to have Nelson as a client as well, okay? Come back. Okay, so about the comfort zone. Do you like this format, Nelson? Do you like the sponsorship?
I like it. I like it.
Guys, we are just winging here, guys.
I know. I think Nelson is really out of his comfort zone because you said we're going to wing it.
Anyways, but something very interesting as an immigrant here is like, I remember when I came and I didn't speak any English, Nelson. I know that you mentioned that I speak English, so I have this advantage. But when I arrived to the United States, I didn't speak any English. So putting yourself, or as an immigrant, putting yourself outside the comfort zone to communicate, to try things, to understand the culture, to get a little bit outside of your own culture is extremely important, right? I would like to pick back a little bit about this and see what you think about this and how did it applied for you, for your parents, and now in Puerto Rico, right? That you're in Puerto Rico.
Right. So, I mean, you've got comfort zones, and whenever you get inside of your comfort zone, everybody says it's good for you, and that's true. I mean, obviously, there's bad things. You should not be getting outside your comfort zone. But for my parents, every day was getting out of their comfort zone because every day was a challenge to them. And I would say more my mom than my dad. My dad was very much, he is much more pragmatic. And my dad is very much, well, let's see now, we're in the country that puts people on the moon and sends spaceships and all that. So until where I come from, they can do that, their opinion don't count. I mean, that was my dad's philosophy. And obviously, the devil is in the details, right? So there's certain things like, no, we're not gonna go that route. So for my parents' comfort zone, so let's go quick thing, the sports thing, right? So didn't understand the emphasis on sports. My dad really didn't, my mom didn't. But then when I applied for ROTC scholarship, a ton of questions, not really so much in academics, but sports. Why was it the sports and team sports? Then it hit me. It's because when you're in a team sport, you are in a team, you're in a group. There's a team captain. There's you're going to have losses. How do you deal with losing as a team? How do you deal with losing as an individual? When, let's say, you've got to hit the ball and you fumble and everybody's booing, hundreds of people are booing, you're a dirtbag, you don't know how to play, you're a piece of crap. And then you've got to take it within and say, coach, put me back in. That's leadership. That's teaching you mental toughness and physical toughness. So my parents didn't understand that. For my brother and sister, specifically my brother, it was, yes, go play football, go get beat up. So those things help get you integrated into the culture to understand what's it going to take. So that was a big comfort zone thing. When you're the son of immigrants, same thing, because you're going between, my parents don't speak English or don't speak good English or talk with an accent. Where for me, every day in school, once I came back from this elite private school in Colombia to PS 159 in Brooklyn, that was a big difference, okay? It was a night and day difference.
For how long did you stay in Colombia? For the
it was a year.
A year, okay.
Yeah, but it was a very strong, formative year.
Yeah.
Because I got the taste of it.
Yeah.
I got the exposure to it. And then in Brooklyn, a big difference. There wasn't that elite school anymore. But even though it was in a top class still, so the difference was that a lot of things I just didn't know. Some things I knew a lot, some things I had no clue about. So every day was, getting out of the comfort zone. Every day was having to get out of the comfort zone. And one of the ways to, I guess you could say, gain acceptance or really gain, I think about this now, really gain dominance as a kid was academics.
Okay.
And I remember when kids would bug me and, we'd fight. This is Brooklyn, okay? This is the Brooklyn that you saw in Captain America. That was no exaggerating.
Okay.
When he said, I'm with you to the end of the line, that is a real life thing you would say in Brooklyn when you got into a fight with someone. Because you would ride on the train and the fight would continue to the last train stop. That was basically, one of us is getting off this train. And but one of the things was, academics, was to be better in academics. And if you really wanted to hurt someone, you would say to them in the future, one day you're going to work for me. As an immigrant kid, to say that to someone else, one day you will work for me. So yeah, that was really getting out of the comfort zone.
There is something that I would like to mention, because this one day you're going to work for me experience that you have, right? It's representative of probably the majority of the immigrants. And that's something that I see that the immigrants is very hungry to prove themselves here, Mm-hmm. But you have other kinds of immigrants that do not want to. How do you see there is a difference? And again, speak with your own experience. What do you see, what the different approach of people that immigrates here, and what is the actual behavior of people that have success and can show, a beautiful, and can share a beautiful legacy?
Well, not all immigrants are created equal.
Yeah.
Okay. Not all immigrants are created equal. Okay. Some people arrive on a boat. Some people arrive swimming. Some people arrive business class. Okay. So not all immigrants are created equal. And that has a big emphasis, because if you've only known, I guess maybe even you could say almost poverty, you arrive in a certain group and you're kind of comfortable because you don't have to get too far out of your comfort zone. Okay, let's say you're Colombian, arrive in Queens, you're kind of comfortable. You're surrounded by the Colombians in Queens. You get to eat Colombian food. You probably married Colombian. You see what I mean? So, or even Italians, right? Because everybody thinks Zambrano is an Italian name for some reason in Italy. People would see that last name and you're Sicilian. I'm like, no, I'm not. But thank you though.
Yeah.
So you could kind of almost stop growing at that level, right? You could stop growing. I think in parts of Boston, a lot of Portuguese, right? So you could almost stop growing because you're comfortable. But let's say you arrive and you land somewhere else, you don't have much of a choice. You must grow, because that tide is going to make you grow.
Yes.
That tide will make you grow, because you're just surrounded by people moving faster, and whatever piece of DNA that you have that says, I want to get better, they're going to feed that. They're going to help feed that.
That's pretty cool. Love it. Guys, we're going to come now for the second part of our The Immigrant Boss show. I'm Augusto Alagia, your host, and with me here I have Julietta Wenzel and Nelson J. Zambrano. The second part, we're going to talk a little bit about financial, a little bit about investments, a little bit about Puerto Rico. And Nelson's going to share everything that he knows to, if you want to move abroad and have this Caribbean, beachy, very relaxed life. I don't know how much relaxed if you're investing, but anyways, so if you want to move to Puerto Rico, he's going to share a little bit some insights and some ideas, guys. Nelson, tell me a little bit more about Puerto Rico now.
Oh, my goodness. Well, okay, the first thing is Puerto Rico is a part of the U.S., and I'm always surprised at the number of people from the U.S. that don't know that. You know, so Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S.
I don't know, but excuse myself, but I'm not American, so I can pardon myself of this.
Well,
but it's good to know.
Okay, but so something as simple as that, right? Like we talk about how people from the U.S. So I never say American, right? Why do I? Because the Americas, right? It's three continents: North America, which includes Canada, right? Central America, which has got Mexico, El Salvador, Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, Belize. Don't want to keep you guys out. And then you've got South America. So for the U.S. audience, the rest of the Americas call themselves American. Okay.
Yes.
So people in Brazil, they're like, what makes you think you own the whole continent? You know. So I always say people from the U.S. or U.S. citizen.
Yes.
Okay. So going back to Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is a part of the U.S. It's a U.S. territory. And because of that, they've got some kind of, you could call it unique privileges, right? There's some things that they don't have, some things that they do have. So Puerto Rico is 100% Latin. It's Spanish. Interestingly enough, even contracts, everything is written in Spanish. But the great thing about it, it's got U.S. accountability thrown in. So it's an interesting dynamic there. What do I like about it is it is the Caribbean, it is overseas, but it's a part of the U.S. I really believe Puerto Rico in the future will be kind of like the Monaco of the U.S. or the Caribbean. All right, you've got U.S. laws. You use the dollar, obviously, so you've got all that. At the same time, it is a Latin place. You could call Latin territory.
That's cool. And for me, I know that it's a territory of the U.S. What is the difference between, for example, being Florida in all the terms, like in legal terms, financial terms, tax return terms? What is the difference in being Florida and being Puerto Rico? Besides, of course, the climate, the structure and stuff.
So Puerto Rico has a lot of what's called tax incentives to invest in Puerto Rico. So that's why I was surprised in Puerto Rico that their biggest industry is not tourism. And I was like, what do you mean it's not tourism? It's actually pharmaceuticals and technology.
Interesting.
And slowly but surely also investment firms are moving to Puerto Rico because of all the tax incentives that they have. So tourism is like third or fourth place, actually.
Okay.
And then in investing, like I said, 95% of all of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone. So that's huge. I mean, in Florida, maybe, little chunks of Florida, New York, little parts, very specific. But when 95% of the island is an opportunity zone, which means you don't have to pay taxes and capital gains, or you have very favorable tax treatment. And in some cases,
it is considered as a state, though.
No,
in terms of the creation of the laws and the tax incentives and stuff. It's considered as a country. How a
territory. So it's this is something that if you want to get Puerto Ricans riled up, just talk about this one.
Yeah.
They have their own laws, which are based on Spanish law.
Okay,
but it's also under the U.S. federal government. Okay.
So quick question. They have their own constitution, or they follow the constitution of the United States?
They have their own constitution, but superseded by the Constitution of the United States.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I didn't know. And how people. So, for example, if I want to move to to Puerto Rico, I don't necessarily need a visa, but eventually I'm going to have some
No, so
follow
again,
some rules, right?
Again, it's not part. It's part of the U.S., so you don't need a visa, you don't need a passport. Although it's always good to take one for ID, right?
Okay.
It's always good to take one. To move to Puerto Rico, they do make it. You have more rules and regulations. Why? Because they don't want people to abuse their tax privileges that they have.
Okay.
So it's not just like, oh, I'm going to buy a house there. They will make sure, they go out of their way to make sure if you're really going to move there, or you're just going to get some address in Condado or San Juan, and then go back to Connecticut because you're a hedge fund manager to avoid taxes. They're going to crack down on that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And you're also going to have probably the IRS right behind them to help them out too.
You are now moving there, right? So you moved, or are you still using this vacation base or investment base?
No,
or
no,
you have your address right now there.
No, I actually moved. I purchased a property there. And so why did I do that, right? Well, first thing is, like in all business, you want to have an advantage, right? And I'll just say it like in the military, right? You want to have an unfair advantage. So that to me is one of my unfair advantages. Someone else can come and say, hey, we're going to go look at property in Puerto Rico. Well, I know that Monday through Friday, you may kick my ass, right? But Saturday morning or Friday night, you got to fly out and I'm still there. So that is my unfair advantage. The fact is that Saturday morning, I could be, and this is a real life example, I could be getting my hair cut. I could be having a cup of coffee with someone, and they could say, Nelson, that thing you do, lo que usted hace, sí. You looking for some other property? He says, yeah. Well, so-and-so down the block, they're looking at doing something. You should talk to them. I said, could you introduce me? Sure. So that other person that has to fly in, right? They're going to stay in a hotel. They're going to try to meet a broker. They're going to try to do this. I am there. So I'll easily get 4 or 5 off-market deals just by having a cup of coffee or getting my haircut. Why? Because I've integrated myself into the community. My competition has to fly in. They got to leave eventually. I'm there. When they're flying out, they can't build what I can do.
What you do now is like bringing people to, in general, buy a vacations home, to do developments there. What is actually your main source of revenue, or eventually in your professional, what you're doing right now?
So that's a 2-part question, right? Or actually a 3-part question. So the end game is to build a portfolio of short-term rental properties, okay? And at some point sell these properties off as a portfolio to a fund now or an institution. That could be a hotel, okay? That could be a pension fund. That could be some hedge fund or private equity fund. So build a portfolio of properties and then be able to sell them off to that institution right there. Because how we do it, we can earn above average returns. Okay. So what these funds, what they're looking for, they're not looking to hit home runs. They're looking to hit base hits. They're looking for returns of maybe 6 to 7 to 8%. In our properties, I'm not going to say easy because it's a process that we follow, very similar to a military process that was taught to me. Our returns are, I don't even know if I can say this, but are double-digit returns, easily double-digit returns. As a matter of fact, I'll even say this I know I can say. If you look at AirDNA, which tracks performance of Airbnb and VRBO properties, right? They track all this information. Our properties, I remember my first goal was I want to be top 10%, right? Hit top 10%, blew through that. Top 5% blew through that. Top 2% blew through that. Now we're top 1% of top 1%.
That's interesting. And I would like to get into the mechanics of this in some minutes, but I would like to explore a little bit the lifestyle of Puerto Rico too, to not be so much boring, because I'm going to ask the mechanics. So what do you think? What do you think is the differential into the lifestyle of being Puerto Rico? First of all, so how long is the flight from here to there?
What is it, about like 2.5 hours?
2.5 hours. Yeah. Super fast.
Well, for us. Now, if if you've lived all your life in Florida, that's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that. Yeah.
So that's cool. Being in Florida and eventually doing investments there, because it's gonna be a good place to be as well to be hanging out. But And it's easy as well, right? So what is the main attractions of Puerto Rico in terms of what you can do? What is cool there? Tell me a little bit more.
Well, in Puerto Rico, you can kind of do anything you want to do except snow ski, right?
Okay.
So you've got a lot of outdoor activities, right? So people are really big into the outdoors and not just scuba diving or wave running or things like that, but there's outdoors. So you can visit a lot of the historical sites. Big thing Puerto Rico has is El Yunque rainforest, okay, which is actually right where I'm at. I look at the back and I've got the rainforest right there. So you have all of that. And even though it is an island, but the different corners of the island, it's totally different. So Cabo Rojo, which is the opposite side of where I'm at, it's a different. There's actually cliffs there, like the cliffs of England, right, of Dover. You've got the cliffs, and then you've got to the other places. But a big chunk, I think 40% of the population in Puerto Rico lives in the San Juan metro area. And then within there, there's a lot to do, whether it's more bohemian or more, I guess you could call it, not luxury is not the word, but you've got this bohemian type or more, I'm just going to use the word luxury, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. So you've got a wide array of things to be able to do. And then within lifestyle, right? So if you speak only English, you've got only a couple of places you're going to be in. Condado, maybe there. But if you're willing and open to go out and about, then the whole island's it's a big playground.
Probably a good place to do one of our future retreats, Julietta, there.
Yeah, I've only been in the airport as a stopover from traveling elsewhere in Latin America, but I do have Puerto Rican friends here who go and visit fairly regularly, and the pictures that they post, it's beautiful over there. So I absolutely know it would be a good place to do a retreat.
So for you guys that don't know, Julietta is planning some retreats. If you want to balance your life, balance your chakras, and balance everything for your future, Julietta soon is going to be announcing some of her retreats. I don't know, where is going to be your retreats, Julietta? You have a place already?
We have a place. We just haven't released it publicly.
Okay.
As much as I'd like to do that here, I know that my podcast co-host would not be happy.
And I will try to negotiate in the future, probably for other retreats, to be one of the teachers, the yoga teachers there. I don't know.
That would be awesome.
I would like to go on a retreat.
Yeah.
And why not at the same time make some money?
That'll be fun. Let's do it.
Anyway, so why I'm bringing this lifestyle thing is like, making money is great, but making money in a balanced lifestyle and enjoying life is even better. And when you're talking to me about Puerto Rico, I say, man, I would love to be a little bit there in this territory of the United States, right? So
come on down.
For sure. I'm going to plan a flight there. That's 2.5 hours. It's going to be great.
So talking about the thing about lifestyle and what Juliette is looking at doing. So another Puerto Rico's incentives, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at a boutique hotel. Actually, we're in the boutique hotel. But Puerto Rico offers tax credits, all right? So normally tax credits, so how do the tax credits do? Let's say the government wants a certain investment in a certain area. So they will give tax incentives. Maybe you don't have to pay taxes. In some cases, they'll say, hey, we're going to give you tax credits if you qualify. So it might be, this is an actual example. I'm just going to make up a number. $500,000 and you qualify, right? We're building a boutique hotel, $500,000 in tax credits. So what can you do with these tax credits? You can actually sell them. So let's say it's Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola says, we've got to pay $500,000 in taxes. We will buy yours for $400,000, so they save $100,000 in taxes. We get $400,000. So
okay, so this I see is like the carbon credits, right?
Except this is for real. This is Uncle Sam. This isn't like save somebody in
so
the jungle.
how it works for the normal Joe, the normal person? Like, can as a personal individual pay my taxes? Can I use it or not?
Well, the way it works for a normal person is in the rest of the U.S. you have to make it's big companies, okay, have to make gigantic investments like 100, 200, 300, 400 unit apartment complex.
Okay.
In Puerto Rico, you can get away with a 6, 7, 8 unit apartment building.
Okay.
I mean, that's a lot more accessible versus, you know, a 100-unit apartment complex that might be $15-20 million.
What is the investment though? What is the minimum investment to get access to this tax credit?
It has to do, and this is something where the CPAs get involved,
Sure,
so I'm
of
not
course.
gonna, but it has to do with, will your investment help tourism?
Okay.
And that's really the overarching thing. Then from there, it's the specifics of the CPA, and the CPA, there's another business
Can you
person.
share like an actual example of someone that have done this, not in a super high level, like millions and millions of dollars, but something a little bit more, accessible?
An actual example,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna kind of, like that old TV show, we've got to change the names to protect the
For
innocent,
sure.
right?
Okay.
It was a small building,
Okay.
a small building in a part of San Juan that needed work. It needed work. Okay, let's just say it needed work. But by doing that work, it would become into a boutique hotel.
Okay.
Thereby helping tourism.
Okay.
Helping tourism in Puerto Rico. So the government of Puerto Rico has rules and regulations that you have to pass. Will it employ people? Will it help beautify the area? At the same time, the area not lose its attractiveness.
Okay.
Right. So you've got to pass all these hoops,
Yes.
which are designed, and I always say the design so people don't take advantage of them. And then at the end, I think it's about like a year or 2 year process. They will award you these tax credits. Okay.
Okay.
then
So
you-
give me the numbers. How much the guy invested? What was the tax credit?
Investment was, I'd say about 1.2, 1.6 million.
Okay, 1.6.
The tax credit was 400,000.
That's 1/3. It's good. Mm-hmm. Not bad, man. Let's have a conversation after this podcast.
Well, we definitely will. We definitely will. But now let's think about that. So that can be integrated with what Julietta is looking at doing, having a retreat. So by doing that, now Puerto Rico can have that retreat come to Puerto Rico. You see? Now that
We should do a business between me, you, Julieta, and you.
Mm-hmm.
We create retreats to balance lives of investors and bring them a little bit to love. And at the same time, you capture the attention of people to be investing in Puerto Rico after, right? We can do and help you to announce it in my podcast.
That sounds like fun.
it sounds good.
No, yeah, man, it does have potential. They have to talk to me. So go ahead. Yeah, so the tourism is really interesting. Probably it's going to be the Monaco of the future, right?
And I say Monaco because, again, Puerto Rico has other industries.
Yeah.
Okay. Heavy pharmaceutical. I was so surprised. It's how much heavy pharmaceutical is in Puerto Rico. Also, technology as well.
What type of technology? Do you know?
You know what? I haven't really delved too much into
Okay.
it. I mean, but I can see that
But it's more software or more hardware? Like
I would have to say more software.
software. Okay, cool.
Puerto Rico did have a time, because when you talk about Puerto Rico, it's almost like you have to learn the timeline, the history.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico used to be big into cannery, a lot of canning of foods, but then for some reason that industry went away. The pharmaceutical one, because they got a lot of tax incentives for pharmaceutical companies to go over. Some of those incentives went away, but the infrastructure stayed. Some companies said, to heck with it. We've gotten our tax benefits, but we still have plants here. We still have infrastructure here.
Okay.
So that stayed. So you've got that. So with Puerto Rico, a lot of it is you have to learn about their legacy programs and then to get a better idea about the island.
That's great. Let's go to Puerto Rico, Julieta, to check all in Nelson's investment.
It sounds
He
awesome.
pays us. He go there and we do like a podcast there, and we bring a lot of investors. That's good, man. I really like it. I really like the idea of going to Puerto Rico, and I'm telling you for sure, I'm gonna start planning because I really want to see a little bit. I love outdoors. I really love outdoors. Do you know if they have kite surfing there?
If it has to do with outdoor in the ocean,
But there is wind. There is wind for kite surfing. You see people doing, how do you say this? Wind surfing or kite surfing there?
I've seen, the answer is yes.
Yes? Okay, cool.
Because the way the topography is, the beaches can change a lot. So one beach might be literally as cool and calm as a lake.
Yeah.
And another beach, careful with those waves.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, man, because I love outdoors and I'm missing because, to be serious, you have been working super hard, like survival mode, right? That's you told me. So parents, as the first generation, we have like tough job. It's very cool.
It's funny you mentioned that. This is an interesting thing about Puerto Rico that is a very pleasant surprise. Okay, two things. One, Puerto Ricans really care a lot about Puerto Rico. Okay, Puerto Rico. So, for example, when you see people complain in Puerto Rico about the beaches, it'll be because when they go to the beach, they'll complain about the fact that there's not enough trash cans because Puerto Ricans treat that beach, which they should, which we would too as well, like it's their personal treasure.
Okay.
Like it's their personal treasure. And then this is the thing, Julietta mentioned it, you mentioned it. Other countries, specifically Latin America, there's a huge divide between rich and poor. Gigantic divide. In some cases, almost hate each other, like what's happening in Venezuela, right? So there's a gigantic. And Puerto Rico, I call that some kind of an emotional scar on Latin America, right? From Mexico to Argentina, they all got that like emotional, like trauma scar. Puerto Rico doesn't have that. So, give you an example. I went to a place called Las Palmas. Las Palmas is an exclusive resort area, not a resort, community, houses on the water, very nice. So we go there. Security opens up the gate for us. We go through. And then there was these other people who, you could tell, they did not own a house in Las Palmas, okay, a place. And I was paying attention to it. I want to see how this goes. The guy looks at them. He says, "Where are you going?" He said, "The beach." Guy opened up the gate. Didn't ask him for ID, didn't ask him for anything, gave him a special pass, said, "Go enjoy your time at the beach." So, being that I have this military background, I follow these guys, right? I follow them. They went to the beach, past this multi-million-dollar house. It was a beachfront. They went, enjoyed the beach. I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at the guy who owns the house. The guy who owns the house does not bat an eye. It's like the most normal thing. Why? Because even though he's got this beautiful beach house, that beach doesn't belong to him. It belongs to everyone. And it's like in their DNA that if you're on that beach, it belongs to all of us and we're all taking care of it. So, of course, when they left, really surprised, they left that beach spotless. So the concept of the security guy at the front, in any other country in Latin America, would have been turned around or, get out or you're not authorized to go there. But they went, and there was no concern from that guy who owned that house of these people are going to rob me or this is, you're over there in that group and I'm in this group. That was so pleasant to watch that. Nowhere in Latin America are you going to see that. Nowhere. I don't care where. From Mexico to Argentina, I'll throw Chile in there because, they're doing, but they got some problems now too. You're going to see that. And that was so beautiful to watch that. That was really incredible.
That's amazing, buddy. Let me just get to our last portion of the job of the Immigrant Boss show here. We are at the last part of the job. Our job is to share with you amazing information about being an immigrant and not only surviving, but thriving as an immigrant. So please, guys, think a little bit about your last words and how to find you, because we are finalizing the podcast. Tell me a little bit what else you want to share, Nelson, and how can we find you?
Well, again, I think Puerto Rico is an amazing opportunity. I'd love folks to be able to partner up with. We work together. We're focusing on the buying of short-term rentals, on earning double-digit returns for our investors. We do all the heavy lifting, okay? So we do all the hard work. So having said that, you can reach me at one of two ways. info@normandygroup.us. Info, I-N-F-O, info@normandygroup.us. Heck, I'll even throw this out, or my other email address that I use, NJZ, November Juliet Zulu, multifamily@gmail.com. So you can reach me.
That's amazing, guys. You're going to find here down in the description of this video as by tomorrow, okay? And you, Julietta, what great stuff you want to share with us at the end and how to find you?
Well, I will say I love talking with you guys today. You know, I did a presentation this morning that both of these men witnessed, and I really believe that love is at the core of everything. And I know both of you love what you do. And I think, you know, I live in a healing kind of woo-woo world, and it is all peace and love, but there's the business world that happens out there as well. And, you know, one of the reasons I had you paint my house is because the care, and you don't use the word love, but it is love that you're putting into the business, and that matters. You know, you have love and passion that you're putting into this investing. And so much of the business world out there lacks love. And if we could just bring that in, you know, we'd see like what you witnessed in Puerto Rico. Like everybody loves the beach there, and so they care for it and they want to leave it better than they found it. And in every business that we do, we should want to leave people better than what we found them. And, you know, so yes, I have my podcast. If you want to listen up, we are on YouTube and all the podcast platforms, Voices of the Goddess. It's me with my amazing co-host, Graciela Valdez. The show is directed towards women, but we have a lot of male listeners. We've had a few male guests. And so lots of just upliftment, enlightenment, and great tools to live a more comfortable, happier, loving, peaceful life. And, you know, really getting down to our authentic selves. I feel like the world got really fake for a long time, especially through the 80s and 90s there. And it's time for us to get back and be real. And also, I am a physical therapist, a healer, body and soul PT. If you need some healing in your life, come see me, and watch for these amazing retreats that we're going to have going in the future. And I really hope you're serious about doing one together. That would be awesome.
Okay, guys, a little shout out about the Hero Wired. Hero Wired is our sponsor, who created this amazing structure here for the immigrant boss to live. So if you are looking for creating a podcast, creating a show, Hero Wire help you to structure it, to make it happen, and to create a lot of networking and powerful traction for you. And we just finalizing the Immigrant Boss show, guys. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you love us. And we're going to be doing this every week. So stay tuned. Okay. How do you feel it?